We're getting extra decorative with letter G. It has again, a Tuscan-ish serif that is the trifurcated. We have 3 parts to it, and it looks more complicated than it is. So what we want to do, I want to show you something before we get started. Just like with the letter E, we broke that down into kind of 2 circular shapes. With this letter G, the way it's drawn, it's really just an oval here that we can kind of start with and work from there. So I just wanted to show you that, and then we'll get started on it over here. All right, I'm gonna bring my opacity back up. I'm on a new layer. I've got my monoline brush, and I'm just going to draw that oval shape and make it a little smaller, and we can kind of work from that to draw our letter G and erase out what we don't need. So I'm gonna draw another oval within it, and you can see it's thinner here and thicker here on both sides. So you could really draw an O. So I've got that there, and I wanna move that over a bit, center it. So I'm just gonna use my selection tool to circle it and kind of get that nice and centered. And we're not gonna need parts of it. So I'm gonna grab that selection tool again, and I'm just gonna get rid of, actually, let's go a little higher. Get rid of all that. So I'm gonna 3-finger swipe and just click cut. And now we can use the rest of this as the basis for our letter G. I'm actually even going to get rid of some of this so I can manually draw that in. All right, so for our serif at the top, you are going to, you know what, let's start with this part so that we know how much room we have to work with. So I'll just come in and kind of re-arc that so it comes in a little bit more. And again, we can always touch it up after our letter is colored in. And I'm gonna come in from the side here, and I'm gonna start with this main part where I've just kind of got something kind of like this. And I'm gonna arc that a bit more like that. And then from the top, I'm gonna draw a small arc, something like that. And then the centerpiece is just, let's do it again. So if I draw kind of a U shape and hold my pen down, it creates its own shape. And that's exactly what I want. So I'm going to close this shape so I can fill with color and kind of see how it looks so far. Again, you can either drag and drop or click continue filling and just tap everything in. And then I can kind of see where I'm at, whether I like it or I want to start over. I'm gonna make that a little smoother. And maybe, because I took some of the thickness off of this side, I'll add it back on this side. Try to keep it even and make that a little more rounded. Again, I just kind of do this optically. I'm not super precise about it because we don't need it to be overly perfect, but we also don't want it to look too wonky. So I'll just keep playing with it until I'm happy with it. And for this one, my ends are a little more rounded. They're not super pointy. So you can always go back in and manually curve those more or arc them a little more. But I chose to not have them be too pointy for this serif style. So we're gonna do the same thing up top with just a bit more exaggeration. So I would come in here and kind of curve around. Again, it's 2-finger tap to undo if you wanna kind of go back and forth and play with it a bit. And then because I have this done down here, I know how much space I have to work with. So I can kind of come in and fill that. And then I exaggerated my top one that was here more as well. So kind of just come around, pretty simple. And then we'll do that same kind of U shape there. And you can fill that in again as well. And then I'm just gonna play with it like I do every week to clean it up. Maybe I want this to be more of a smooth line here coming in from that, or I want it to come around even more to be a little more curly. This is really up to you. It doesn't, like I said, have to be exactly like mine. Even my own isn't like my original one. But throughout this series, this will just give you, 26 different ideas of serifs you can incorporate into your individual pieces, because sometimes it's hard to sit down and think of what's something new and different. And the beauty of it not being the same every time is perhaps you're accidentally coming up with a new style of serif, and you can use that in an overall piece outside of these alphabet drawings. So I'll just keep cleaning up and adjusting as needed until I get to a point I'm happy with it. And if you notice, like maybe this is thicker than some of these up here, come back in and just delete some out. Play with it as long as you feel like you need to, or as long as you have time for, to get it how you want it. But most letters start with a basic shape. So starting with that kind of oval O shape, I feel like helps make it less intimidating and a little easier. And then one thing you can always do too as you're making adjustments optically is grab sometimes what I'll do, so I don't mess up my original letter in case I want to come back to it, is I'm going to get rid of that one while I show you this, duplicate it so I have another copy, turn that one off, and then I'll start messing with this one just to see how things come out. Like maybe I want this to be over a little further, and I'll adjust it and bring it over. And then, whoops, I got part of that. Let me start that again. So carefully outline it, maybe pull it over, or you can change the size a little if you think it's too big. And then you go back in and clean up those lines so that they match better. But let's say I get to the end and I'm like, I really kind of liked my original better. I have it still, so I can compare them, see which one I like better. And if I don't like my new one as well, I can always go back to my original. So I end up usually having multiple copies as I kind of work through what looks best. And then again, now that we have our letter drawn, once you're happy with it, I'll probably sit and work on this just a little bit more off screen, and then copy it and paste it into our template. Add, paste, shrink it down a little, make sure you're on uniform so you're not distorting it, and get it pasted right in there. And we, again, are coming along. I'll see you next week for letter H.